Welcome to the Equity Check podcast, hosted by the Office of Commissioner Rodney Ellis. I'm your host, Patrick. Thanks for joining us. We live in Harris County. We know what flood risk feels like. We've seen bayous overflow, roads vanish, and entire neighborhoods submerged after a single night of rain. We all remember Hurricane Harvey. Harvey changed everything, not only because it was the second most devastating hurricane in our nation's history, but because it revealed something deeper about the systems we rely on. It exposed just how unprepared much of Harris County really was, and it forced us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The protection you receive in a disaster often depends on where you live, what you have, and who's listening. Some neighborhoods drained in hours, others stayed underwater for days. Geography, of course, played a role, but it doesn't explain the full picture. The neighborhoods that flooded the most and the worst were often the ones systematically denied protection. And while the damage reached across the county, Black and brown communities faced the most devastation. Because for decades, flood infrastructure in Harris County was built around wealth, political access, and land value. Entire communities were left out, left to flood again and again. And that pattern of neglect was not accidental. After Harvey, the damage was too widespread to ignore. The failures of the county's flood system were laid bare. So in 2018, Commissioners Court placed a $2.5 billion bond on the ballot to fund new flood control projects across the region. But Commissioner Ellis pushed for one essential addition: an equity framework that prioritized people's lives and safety, not just property values. A community-led task force helped shape the framework, ensuring that flood risk, historic disinvestment, and vulnerability were all taken into account. The goal was simple: direct resources where they were needed most. Commissioners Court approved the bond language unanimously, and 1 year later, on the anniversary of Hurricane Harvey, voters passed the bond, choosing to raise their own taxes in order to bring long-promised protection to communities that had gone without it for too long. But 7 years later, the promise of equity has stalled. The breakthrough we celebrated has not come. The neighborhoods that were supposed to come first are still waiting, and the system has gone quiet. What once felt like progress now feels like abandonment. The Flood Control District has yet to release a full, updated list of bond-funded projects. Communities that were told they would be prioritized still don't know where they stand. There's been no map, no timeline, and no public explanation. People who have flooded again and again are being asked to trust a process they cannot see. And without transparency, there is no accountability. Now, since the bond passed, however, neighborhood leaders have refused to stay quiet. They've shown up, asked hard questions, and organized for the protection they were promised. And on June 26, after years of sustained pressure, they won a hard-fought victory. As directed by Commissioners Court, the Flood Control District committed $262.5 million to urgent needs, including $118 million for projects along Greens Bayou. The court also required an updated project schedule, revised assessments, and a public dashboard to be delivered by September 18th. But this was not a gift. It was the result of organizing, research, and testimony from residents who refused to be ignored. Today, we're talking to one of those advocates. Doris Brown is the co-founder of the Northeast Action Collective, a legendary civil rights activist in her own right and a lifelong resident of Northeast Houston. She's been at the forefront of this fight from the beginning, and she continues to show what real community leadership looks like when the system falls short. Joining me today is Doris Brown, the co-founder of the Northeast Action Collective and a legendary civil rights activist in her own right. Doris has been at the forefront of the fight for flood equity since Harvey and knows a thing or two about holding our government accountable. We are honored for us to join her today. Doris, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to start with your own story. After your neighborhood flooded during Harvey, what turned that experience into a call to action for you?
The fact that no one came for us.
Yeah.
No one helped the people evacuate. No one, Red Cross, I'm still waiting on Red Cross personally myself from that time. But we all realized that we couldn't get any help.
Mm-hmm.
We had people that were just almost on top of their rules and different things like that. Kids, everything. Finally, some people came with dump trucks and big rig type trucks.
Yeah.
People were crowding on the trucks and then falling off. You know, it was a disaster is what it was. We didn't see anyone from the municipalities. It was terrible. Yeah.
And one of those things about Harvey was that, not only was it the second most devastating hurricane in our nation's history, but that's what it revealed, is just the gross inequities within our community and the fact that people are left out entirely, not just from jobs, not just from education opportunities, but also from relief and from safety when a disaster hits. But I do think that in the years following Harvey, you've helped transform your neighborhood from vulnerable to more resilient. And how did you bring people together and start building that kind of grassroots power from the ground up?
People were frustrated. They were angry.
Yeah.
No one, like I said, no one came to help us.
Right.
And they wanted to do something different. So it was originally 12 of us that started the Northeast Action Collective. We're multicultural, bilingual, intergenerational, and we were frustrated. We were angry. We wanted to do something different. So we started advocating for ourselves. We started educating ourselves. We started reading. West Street Recovery is eventually the people that came in. It was a bunch of millennials.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were phenomenal. They started doing house repairs and different things because they considered us, I guess, less than. Our stuff did not matter. The fact that people had lost everything, it did not matter to them. So West Street helped us. They started building because we knew FEMA was coming to deny us.
Right.
They came in, he walked around, he looked at the damage and told me that I could live in it. And I have COPD and asthma.
Right.
So living in mold was not a thing. My ceiling had fell in. It just made me angry.
Right.
I'm paying all this tax money and I can't get any help when I really need it.
Right.
It devastated me. It made me angrier. So we got together and we started meeting, and as it materialized, we began to trust one another. We built a trust, and now we are an extended family and over 160 members strong.
That's right.
So it has been phenomenal. We've learned data.
That's
We
right.
learned how to advocate for ourselves. Once you educate a person, it's hard.
Right.
It is very hard for them to go back. Once they realize that they have a power, you are your own change agent.
Right.
Yeah, and this right here gave them the strength. It mellowed them out, and we just come together so good. It's phenomenal. It's kind of like watching your children grow up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we engage, we educate, and we encourage, and they want to advocate for themselves.
Definitely.
I love that.
Whenever Commissioner's Court happens, for folks who don't know this, the Northeast Action Collective, you'll see them, right? You go to city council, any city council meeting, any Commissioner's Court meeting, you'll see them by their yellow shirts. And so when I walk into the court, it doesn't matter how nervous I am about court when I see those yellow shirts. I know
Right.
It's going to be a good day. You spoke about educating, and I think this is very important. Learning about data, learning about policy. The flood bond passes in 2018.
Right.
A year after Harvey. But I do think it was important that you helped your neighbors understand what that meant for them. And how did you help translate something a little complicated like an equity prioritization framework? I didn't know what that meant until I had a lot of people really explain it to me. But how did you transform that complicated policy into something that everyday people can understand?
Yeah, it was first they did not understand equity and equality.
Right.
Equity meant justice for us.
Yeah.
Finally, somebody had written something that pertained to us having an equal share. We were getting a seat at the table. We were getting a piece of the pie. Somebody was, Mr. Ellis, he wrote the equity clause in there. It was looking out for us, and it was just phenomenal. It was what we had been wishing for. Somebody that cared enough to make sure that it was some fairness in the game.
Right.
You know, we wanted a piece of the pie. We would get this. That's what equity meant to us.
Yeah.
That's what that flood bond meant to us. A chance to recover, to mitigate the flooding that we had lost, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Definitely.
Mitigation.
Definitely. And, you know, we passed that bond 7 years ago.
Right.
You know, and I think a lot of folks were expecting a lot of things to happen within that 7 years.
Exactly.
And we realized earlier this year that we've hit a roadblock and that flood control might not be following that equity framework. But you've been there, and the Northeast Action Collective has been there, and people have been organizing. And that takes energy and trust and time.
Exactly.
So what did it look like to bring together elders, renters, kids, and neighbors who had never been interested in advocacy before?
I think that when people realize that, well, let me go back first. First time, it was a different people over the flood control.
Right.
That did not adhere to equity.
Right.
We went back to court. We started protesting again because we could not understand why we understood why they were still doing the same thing, doing it their way. And eventually, it changed hands.
Right.
Flood control changed hands. But here we are again, and it's happening all over again.
Right.
I don't understand why people don't understand fairness. You know, what is the justice to that? And when people realize this, we got angry all over again.
Yeah.
Where is our piece of the pie? Where is the fairness?
Right.
You know, and this brought more people into the cause because they realized that if we don't stick together for us, by us, we don't get a piece of the pie.
That's right.
And, you know, it's just been phenomenal now because everyone understands we have to go out and do our own data. We did research in the neighborhoods, different neighborhoods, and, you know, it's just been a learning experience for us.
Yeah.
And it's educational, and more people, the more they know about what's going on and what's happening, the more people that are willing to fight.
Definitely.
Because you're fighting for yourself. You're fighting for you as an individual, your family, your home. You know, so.
And I think that's what kind of these bureaucratic systems and other officials are counting on. They're counting on people not knowing and not educating themselves on what the processes are.
Right.
And, you know, how budgets are passed and how flood control allocates money. But y'all do know. You have educated yourself.
Yeah,
and you have
we had
learned.
to.
And earlier this year on June 26th, the court finally directed flood control to course correct and ensure that the most vulnerable projects, about $262.5 million, were raised and were finally committed to be done.
Yes.
So what were the moments when you thought this would never happen, and what do you think your advocacy did to help push us over the line?
I think we felt vindicated.
Yeah.
It was a win for us. Because finally, the powers that be were going to do something that was right.
Yeah.
It made us feel good because we stuck and we stayed.
That's right.
We had to watch everything. If you don't watch the money, the money will get away from you. If you don't continue, I just have a mantra: if it's not right, I'm going to fight. And this right here made us feel like someone was listening to us, and we got some fairness. We got some justice finally. And it's just, and we're going to continue to watch it.
For sure. And like, organizing is not a sprint; it's a marathon. And I think that captures everything. And I want, like, how do you be present and persistent in the face of this? Because I think a lot of young organizers, they get into this game something doesn't go their way on their first try, right? And it kind of just takes them out of the movement entirely. What advice do you have for those young people to like stay persistent and stay with it, to stay the course?
You got to stick with it. I mean, there are going to be ups and downs. The only time you really fail is when you quit.
That's right.
I keep going. It keeps me young. I started this a long time ago. You know, I lived life, but I never gave up that opportunity to help other folks. And that's what it's all about. Right. People banding together to help themselves. If your municipalities, federal government, or anybody, you got to fight. You got to stand up for yourself. And that's what I preach.
For sure.
You know, you want change, everyone is their own change agent.
That's right.
And there's power in numbers.
Definitely.
If we stick together, we can win this.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not going to be right. You know, it's not a quick fix. It is a war. You have to keep fight. You have small wins during the battles and different things, but it's a war. You got to continue it.
Second, I want to go back to that word equity, and I have seen that word just kind of get thrown around, and not a lot of people know the true meaning of it. And there has been a discourse. It's been quiet, but I do worry that there are some people that say that equity means shifting resources unfairly, right? That this flood equity prioritization framework, it's a zero-sum game. You know, we're taking resources away from one community to give to another. But you've lived through the consequences of inequity and inequality. Yeah. So I really want to know, how do you respond to those who see fairness as a threat?
Simply this. You are not flooding. You live in a flood neighborhood. You are the first one that gets the big piece of the pie. Mm-hmm. We get nothing. Or if we do, it's so small, there's nothing that we could do. Fairness, equity, is us having the same piece of pie that you are having. Build our stuff up to match what you already have.
Yeah.
That's equity. Equity is such a word that was a long time coming.
Yeah.
And we just fight for it because it's our right. You take our tax dollars and put it over in other neighborhoods, more fluid neighborhoods, because their stuff is more expensive, different things like that.
Right.
But what about the people that you take their money and don't render them services?
Reinvest back into their community.
Exactly. Right. You know, so.
And that was the whole point about the split bond. You know, people chose to raise their own taxes.
Right.
To get flood project. And these weren't people in River Oaks, right?
Right.
These weren't people, you know, in Tanglewood. These were folks in those poor marginalized communities that never received any investment.
But historically been disinvested.
There were no crumbs to fight for.
That's right.
Sure. Last question. So, when I was 13 years old, I made a deal with my mom that if I kept a B average on my report card, I could get a cell phone. But when you were 13 years old, you made a deal with your mom that if you kept a B average, you got to go to the World War sit-ins to help desegregate Houston.
Yes.
And I would love to hear that story. I really want our audience to know that you've been in it since the beginning, literally. You got to be with the big kids.
Yeah. When I was 13, I hated that sign that said for colored only. It kind of made me angry, and I didn't really, because I kept saying for colored only. We're all colored. Everyone's different color. Some people are red, some people are black, brown. So everyone is colored. And that made me angry because it was discriminatory is what it was.
Right.
And the college kid at TSU were going downtown to F.W. Woodworth every day and sit in. I heard about that. So I started shooting hooky from school. Going to, I catch me a bus, go to TSU, and they say, here come the kid. I'd be running trying to catch the bus to ride downtown. And we sat there all day long. They wouldn't give us water. They wouldn't sell us a piece. They had big slices of pizza for a quarter. They wouldn't even sell us anything. But every day we dressed up and just sit there until my mom found out when I got my report card that I had so many absent days. I didn't think about that. All I wanted to do was go down there and protest. But she took me to school the next day after a little talk. And we talked to the principal and the dean of girls. And finally, because I didn't want to not go.
Of course, yeah.
And we made a deal. If I kept be average, I could go 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But I had to do my homework. I had to do my schoolwork. And on those days that I was there, it was just, oh man, it was hard. But I did that because I wanted to be a part of this civil rights movement. I wanted to change things. And that's when I really come up with the mantra for myself. If it's not right, I need to fight.
Yeah.
And at that time, really, my mom, she really understood, but she just thought I was too young to really understand what the status quo was.
Right.
But I knew the status quo wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she always told me, she said, you're a rebel without a cause. I said, I have a cause. Yeah, I have a cause, Mom. Yeah, cause it's not right. And she just looked at me, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, Ms. Doris, thank you for making our world more possible. And I am grateful to be in this fight with you. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, ma'am. Take care.
I shall.